Hi, what I'd like to talk about today, a bit of a funny title, I suppose, electoral fraud and tax avoidance. But it's really about whether there's a similar mindset in there, because what I'm struggling to get to grips with, the news story that came out this week. So we already knew that Vote Leave, when it came to the Brexit thing, Vote Leave, the campaign pushing for a referendum to vote in favour of leaving the EU, which ultimately won, of course, broke electoral law, specifically that it overspent. It spent more money than it was allowed to do. And it's really the mindset that allowed them to think that they were able to spend more than they knew they should have been able to spend, and it's somehow been morally okay, been similar to tax avoidance. But before I go on to that, there are any number of things we could also talk about here, because the story that's come out this week, so a judge has ruled on this. There's now been a court judgment that says it wasn't a simple case of Vote Leave overspending and hiding various things. It's something much more serious. So the Electoral Commission, which are like the police of electoral matters, they effectively gave them permission. So in some ways, it's almost like it certainly lessens the blame on the part of Vote Leave. It doesn't mean to say that they didn't break the law, and it doesn't mean to say that what they did from a moral point of view wasn't reprehensible. But the thing is, if you're told by the Electoral Commission, oh yeah, all you have to do, you've spent up now, okay, but you've got this load of other money you want to spend, all right, sure, what you do, donate it to another campaign, and then they can spend it. It's all above board. The problem is, it's not. It just from an obvious point of view, it's not. So what ultimately happened? There was a load of money, about £600,000, I think, just basically given to a student. That student immediately just was acting as a mule. Effectively, they just passed it on to the companies that were providing the services that Vote Leave wanted to use. But the Electoral Commission had said that was okay. Now we sort of know that that can't possibly be okay, because if someone donates money to a campaign, they expect it to go to that charity, if we want to call it that for want of a better word, not to another one, even if it's in a related area. If we wanted it to go to the other one, we would have donated to that other one. So there's a certain element where you'd feel, that money's been stolen effectively. But even if it had the donors permission and full knowledge about it, it still breaches the rules. Because if you're going to have rules on caps for electoral spending to create something of an even platform for less well-funded groups to be able to have their say, then they have to mean something. Anyone can just set themselves up as I could create a campaign to ban asparagus at breakfast. And it doesn't take a lot to do that. And if someone then gave me money and pass it on to someone else, you can't have caps unless they're there, because that's a ridiculous loophole. And the loophole doesn't exist. It's now been confirmed in court that the loophole never existed. They shouldn't have done that. But here's where it gets fairly serious before I move on to what I really want to talk about. It wasn't called Vote Remain. The Remain group, the main Remain group, also had a similar situation where it spent up. And its advice from the Electoral Commission was you spent up. So actually, and here's where it's super serious, it wasn't just an error of judgment on the part of the Electoral Commission, as I see it. That's the judgment. That's the official judgment. The official judgment is the Electoral Commission got the law wrong. That's quite bad, because that's an issue of incompetence. But when it transpires that effectively the main Leave group and the main Remain group effectively declared the same thing to the Electoral Commission, we've spent up to our limit, they sent a letter to the Remain group saying, you've spent up, and a letter to the Leave group saying, well, why don't you just donate it to another group that's affiliated with you, and it'll all be fine. That's serious. Isn't that in itself worthy of further investigation? But anyway, what I really want to explore here is the mindset, because, obviously we know from a legal point of view, the Vote Leave broke the law, broke electoral law, and there's various issues around that. We now know that the Electoral Commission provided duff legal advice, and therefore it itself effectively aided in the breaking of electoral law, because they gave Vote Leave permission to do this. They had no right to do it because it was illegal. So they've basically aided and abetted that crime. But forget about the legal side of it. Let's just think about, I want to think about the mindset. You know that there's a cap on how much you can spend, and you know what the reason for that is. By funneling some money off to associated groups, you know that and you're getting the services you wanted anyway. All you're doing is passing the money on to someone else, not to spend as they see fit. This isn't actually donating to another campaign group, which would still be overspending because they're campaigning for the same cause as you. But that's not even what happened. They gave it to a student who then just paid the people you wanted the services from anyway, and the services would be done on your behalf. So it wasn't even really, in any serious sense, donating it to another group. You were just telling someone else to book the services that you wanted for yourself. Here's the money for it. But you set yourself up as, you know, voteleaveassociateslimited.com or whatever, and you're a different group and therefore it's fine. The mindset that allows you to think that from a moral point of view, that's fine, that's within the spirit of the law, never mind the rule of the law. And it's strange to me. But then I also think, when you look at some of the people involved in this, of course, you know, without trying to generalise, but we don't have to generalise, ultimately the people in charge of these campaigns for leaving the EU were all, to a man, and it was mostly men, let's face it, were basically very wealthy businessmen. And another thing that is quite notable about some of these, because some of these have very recently, of course, I would be talking about, they're not even, I mean, they've got what they want, we're leaving the EU, and does that mean that they're going to be doing sterling business in the EU? No, they're moving the money out. Their money's already out in a lot of cases, because these are also exactly the sort of people that set up subsidiary companies that basically don't exist, offshore in Jersey and places like that, to avoid paying taxes. And it seems to me that it's the same sort of mindset. The mindset of these people, it's very difficult for us to fathom if you're just a normal working person who, you know, you get no say in paying your tax. Your taxes are just paid. You pay your taxes. It's as simple as that. You know, you're if you're employed as I am, you pay your taxes according to, you know, that's on your employer does it for you, PAYE. So that's all standard. People have taken care of it already. If you earn a bit on the side, you understand that you have to declare it. And if you don't, you could end up in court. Whereas if you're super wealthy, it seems that taxation is more a matter of conscience. It's almost a case of, okay, you're now wealthy enough to be able to choose whether you pay tax. And if you do pay tax, how much tax you want to pay. Because, you know, if you want to reduce your tax burden, just create a mythical company, put it in Jersey, get an office in Jersey somewhere. Might not even be an office, might just be a post box. And do your business, well, do your business in the UK, but pretend it's been done from there. And that's fine. And you won't pay tax on money, just funnel the money over there and you're all good. You know? And I just wonder if it's the same. And the people who do that, because you listen sometimes to interviews of the people who've done it. And some of them, you know, Jimmy Carr very famously did this, but then straight away went, yeah, actually, this is not right, is it? He put his hands up straight away. Obviously, he was doing it for purposes of greed, but he put his hands up and said, yeah, it's not right. I shouldn't do it. I'll not do it again. And okay, you can sort of wonder, well, why did you do it in the first place? It's deeply unpatriotic, and you are... The argument people will use in situations like this is, well, it's legal. But you have to think about it. It's only legal. I mean, who decides the laws? Politicians. It's only legal because politicians want a way to get out of paying taxes themselves. So it shouldn't be. It's not legal because there's any good reason for it. It's legal specifically to allow... It's a form of corruption to allow politicians and their wealthy benefactors to be able to get out of paying tax. It's basically a rip-off that they do in order to solicit donations from wealthy people as well. So, but the mindset from some of these people when they were interviewed, who didn't just put their hands up and say, sorry, it's wrong, that actually tried to justify it, they genuinely think it's within their rights to decide how much tax they pay. That it's actually fine, that they shouldn't have to pay a lot of tax. Or any tax, indeed, if needs be. And the mindset that allows these people to think that that's fine, I wonder if it's the same mindset that allowed them to think that they could exceed their spending limits with some fiddle. Because on the face of it, the fiddle that was carried out by Vote Leave was no different to the tax fiddles that these same people carry out in their business lives. You know, setting up subsidiary companies. In this case, it was a subsidiary student, a person who would just funnel the money for them. But it's the same process, isn't it? And I wonder if it's the same mindset, that it's all above board because, you know, as long as we act within the bounds of the laws, then it's all fine and dandy, when of course it's not. In this case, of course, unlike in the business case where it is perfectly legal, as I say, it's only legal because no government stops it being legal. But in this particular case, of course, in the Electoral Commission, they did break the law. But at the same time, they were also advised it was okay. And I can well believe now that the sort of person's mindset, and I don't support this mindset, I think it's appalling. But I can understand how someone with that mindset, coming from that wealthy background, where they're used to moving money around simply to avoid paying tax, which is, as I say, inherently for someone who says they're campaigning to take control of Britain back, it's deeply, deeply unpatriotic. To not be paying your fair share of taxes is one of the most unpatriotic things you can do without actively attacking your own country. Just short of doing that, it's pretty much the most unpatriotic thing you can do, because it harms your country to reduce the amount of money the government has to spend on maintaining social cohesion within that nation. But that sort of mindset, I can well see how it follows that if you're getting this legal advice effectively that says it's okay, that you would never question it, in a way that I would look at it and straight say, well, I would have looked at that advice and straight away said, that can't possibly be right, because that makes a mockery of spending limits altogether. You might as well not have them, because you could spend anything you like. All you have to do is, when you've exceeded your allotted amount, find someone who can just pass the money from A to C. That's all you have to do. Absolutely ridiculous, isn't it? Ridiculous. And as I say, around this judgment, there are other issues as well, in terms of why the Electoral Commission advised Vote Leave in the way they did, but advised the Remain group in the way that they should have done for everyone. That's a big question for me as well. And I'd be interested to see if anyone chases that up and we have some more information in the next week or two. But anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about today. I think my next one, I'm not sure what it would be, is likely to also, it just seems to be mostly Brexit at the moment, but I think as we build up towards November, it inevitably is probably going to be another to do with the people's vote, when I can get that out, hopefully in a few days. But anyway, thanks for listening to the video. If you made it this far, if you've enjoyed it, then click the like button, subscribe if you want to hear more videos like this, and until next time, I'll see you later.